Thank you, Ramdashi. You called me the most educated. I don't know if that's necessarily a compliment since I have way too many master's degrees. But namaste, Jai Samnaran, and good afternoon to all of you. I am so blessed for the opportunity to speak today, and I hope you will all find this presentation both useful and encouraging as you look to your careers now and in the future. So for the next 10 minutes, consider me your career advisor. I know most Hindus don't look at careers outside of engineering or medicine. This is a picture from admissionjockey.com helping Hindu communities decide what to choose. Decisions. Do I become a doctor or engineer? And I'm not just putting this up as a joke. You'll find countless such blogs and websites trying to help Hindu communities, Hindu youth decide, should you be a doctor or engineer? And these finite number of careers, medicine, engineering, IT, maybe law or business if we're feeling creative, doesn't happen by accident. We choose these careers because our parents want us to be settled. We want respect in our community. We want the intellectual engagement. We want return of our investment for the time and money we put into our degrees. We want to make our family proud. This is a big one, especially when we're young. We want to be able to take care of our families now and in the future. And we have parental pressure, which I hope to discuss at the end if I still have time. These are all extremely good reasons to pursue the noble professions I just mentioned. But these are not reasons to ignore a wide range of government and nonprofit professions where Hindus can change prevailing narratives. The damaging narratives at play in this context include the erroneous conception of Hindus as continuous perpetrators, but never victims of violence, and the idea that Hindus communicating about the violence they have faced is an extremist and violent act against other communities, which is absolutely ludicrous. We wouldn't characterize any community speaking about their experience as violent, but that happens in the Hindu cases. So what I hope to introduce to you today is the possibility that you can make your family proud. You can make a good living and pursue a career in public or civil service to address these narratives directly. But first, let me review why practicing Hindus are needed at all. After all, there are other people taking care of civil and public service. There are organizations working on this, and that's enough, right? Well, we know that Hindus are unique. We're all here because we're proud Hindus, and there's so many reasons why Hindus are well suited to public service. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Hindus treat the world as their family, and thus work well with all communities. Ahimsa Parama Dharma. Hindus believe nonviolence is the highest dharma and avoid unnecessary conflict. And so on and so on. Hindus regularly pray for peace of the entire world. Hindus appreciate the many paths of religion as divine and valuable, and therefore will support and uplift other communities instead of trying to bring them down. But Hindus are not just needed because of this perspective and ability to work well with others. No, Hindus are also needed because without us in these pivotal roles, marginalized Hindus face the consequences of false narratives. These consequences are not just at the conceptual level of ideas and words. They're brought down to this harsh reality of physical consequences for millions. These consequences include rape, murder, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. And I don't use the word genocide lightly. We have to be careful about how we use that term. Saying this now is not just a talking point. Very unfortunately, this is our history. So we all have heard about the Bengali Hindu genocide in 1971. This is a very real reality that has been documented by journalists, by governments, and by people, survivors. The US Department of State was involved in supporting Pakistan to perpetrate this genocide. The United Nations was not involved in helping Bengali Hindu refugees. So what resulted was 10 million Bengalis, the majority of whom were Hindu, had fled to India. 1.5 million Bengalis were displaced within that region. Although precise figures are difficult to obtain, about 3 million people were killed and at least 200,000 women were raped, and these women happened to be from various religious communities, including Hindu communities. This is a very stark reality, and the reason why I mentioned this here is because the US and UN were directly involved. People were making decisions in real time about what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. That led to lives being lost, to women being raped, to entire communities being cleansed of their existence. There's also the example of the Bhutanese Hindus, which we heard about a little bit earlier. So in the late 1980s, basically in Bhutan, they tried to remove an entire population, the Hindu Bhutanese population, from the country, tried to excise them even though they were citizens, decided through their own cultural progress that this community posed a demographic and cultural threat. The government enacted discriminatory citizenship laws, directed against ethnic Nepalis that stripped about 1/6 of the population of their citizenship and paved the way for their expulsion. So we've already heard about the ways in which there were governments that helped and governments that didn't help. Here, the US helped. There are many Bhutanese, Nepali, Hindu refugees, they prefer to be called Bhutanese Americans, in the United States today. That was because the United States stepped up. Somebody made the decision to let them in. The United Nations was useful in helping them get refugee status. This is an example of governments stepping up, the UN stepping up and doing the right thing, even when there were other governments who were not as involved and not able to assist when help was very much needed. So there are so many other examples that we could include here, and I'm sure these examples are popping up in everybody's mind. So many stakeholders, so many different countries, so many communities that we could include here. And I paint with a very broad brush in summarizing the examples that I did include. But these examples illustrate two really important points for us. First, governments and NGOs have effects. These effects are real, and these effects are for us. And second, that when we do step up, when there is somebody who's sympathetic, that mass atrocities can be avoided. So the US State Department and the UN are the examples I'm going to be using today in the little bit of time that we have, but you can fill in the UN with any large international organization or NGO, such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and countless others, or governments, such as any of your own. We all have a role to play in preventing these and other acts of mass violence. But how do we even start? Surely the people in these positions are uniquely qualified, exceptionally intelligent, or must know the right people in order to get into these very important positions. And that's not us, right? Well, I can tell you after working with UN and State Department officials to try and get recognitions for atrocities against Hindus, that there is no reason why any young Hindu, including every single person in this room today, could not be in their place. They are there because they tried. It's that simple. I've spoken with these people. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say they're neither exceptional nor unique. They are ordinary individuals. Some overrepresented communities are in some of these organizations, and that also can be a problem. Hindus, practicing Hindus in particular, and I really emphasize the word practicing, need to be represented here. When we have Hindus that are not practicing, Hindus that are cultural Hindus, we have basically instances where a Hindu is acting against Hindu interests, and many of you are aware of that situation. So they applied to the lowest position, and they got their foot in the door and worked their way up. Getting your foot in the proverbial door is simple. And I want you all to really, really think about that. It's very simple. It's not difficult. Painting the pages of history is in your grasp. So here's a brief overview to orient you so you can look up these opportunities and explore the options available to you after this session as you're ruminating over what you've just heard. First, for the United Nations, and again, this is just a representative example which each and every one of you can have access to and should pursue. The UN Young Professionals Program is basically for people that have already started their careers. It's something that has an entrance examination process and professional development, and once you go through certain steps, you're able to enter this program. The internship program is exactly what you think. You would get a first-hand impression of the working environment of the United Nations, so maybe it's for recent graduates or people who are still studying their undergrad or graduate degrees. So whatever level you're at, maybe you're already studying, many of you have already graduated and you're like, oh my goodness, galti se mistake ho gaya, I have my engineering degree, now what do I do? You know, this isn't actually my interest. Don't worry. There is no such limitation on many of these programs that, oh, you have to have this degree, otherwise you're not accepted. That is not there. So if you're genuinely interested, don't hold yourself back. The other example I want to highlight for you is the US Department of State. Of course, we all know the US Department of State is extremely important. It was important in the Bengali Hindu genocide. It was important for accepting Lochampa Hindu refugees, and it's important for many, many other issues that we face. But this is just an example. Any of your home governments where you're a citizen you should be thinking about that when you see this. So first we have the Pathways Internship Program, and it's targeted towards US citizens in a wide variety of educational institutions from high school to graduate school and professional academic levels. So this program provides students with opportunities to explore federal careers while being paid for the work performed. And that's really unique, being paid for internships, which you might not get in other fields. The Recent Graduates Program is just that. It's for recent graduates. And the Presidential Management Fellows Program, it's a very elite program. This is something that you can go back to your parents and they will be proud of you if you are accepted into such a program. The federal government's premier leadership development program for advanced degree candidates. That's at the master's level, at the PhD level, those types of places. This is for you if you already have an advanced degree. And again, if you go to a lot of these websites, you're not going to see that they're asking for only specific degrees or only specific people who have not pursued any other field. They're looking for smart people who are going to do a good job, and I'm confident that those of you who made the time and effort to come here to work for the Hindu Samaj are those people. So once you have started in one of these organizations, advancement is possible with hard work and strategic thinking. There's no reason we shouldn't have a Hindu head of these organizations within a few decades. If you need more reassurance, just go on LinkedIn. Search for people whose jobs you could imagine yourself in. You're like, oh, I wish I had this person's job. Go to their page. Look at what they've done to get in the position they're in. If any of those steps look practical and interesting to you, start pursuing those steps. Now comes the real issue. Does doing all this hard work and serving the Hindu Samaj mean that you're going to be living in poverty? Well, that's completely up to you whether you pursue this and end up in poverty or pursue this and end up with prosperity. Our parents want us to be settled. We want respect in our community. We want to be able to take care of our family. We want to have a job that we're proud of. But all of this, for a lot of us, leads down to dollar bills. And this is a very reasonable request of a lot of our parents, that we want you to be settled, beta. We want you to have a prosperous future. There's nothing wrong in that. So we need to take a closer look at salaries and talk to our parents, talk to our families and loved ones, maybe our spouses for some of us, and have this genuine conversation about what does this look like? So for traditional career paths for Hindus, these are some sample salaries based off of US data. I'm sure those of you who are actually in these professions could fill in the blanks correctly here. But this is just an idea of the ranges for some salaries. Now let's look at sample salaries for government and UN careers per year. So the current salary scale for an IAS officer in Bharat is 56,100 to 250,000 rupees. If we look at the current salary scale for Foreign Service Information Management Specialist, and I'm looking at really, trying to get really specific here because the salaries range so widely depending on what specific position you're talking about. It's $61,635 to $121,648 USD. So you can see the range there. And the reason why I'm giving a range is that the salary is actually, when you open it up, what is the sample salary? They have an entire spreadsheet for if you're at this level, and you've been working this many years, you get this salary. This level, working this many years, gets this salary. So it's actually, there's a lot of variability there, and it depends on how you move up within that organization. Hindus are needed in many professions in civil and public service. And if you climb the ladder within a specific organization, you'll be able to be compensated and advance in your career appropriately. But there are many other professions that we can consider, and some of us, if we're trying to make our parents proud, it's a matter of speaking to them. If we're trying to make sure that we're actually doing something we're interested in, it's a matter of educating yourself. So there are some other positions where we need Hindus are nonprofit programming and leadership, South Asia studies, political science, college and university professors, journalists. This one's so important, cannot be emphasized enough. We need more practicing Hindu journalists at local, national, or international news agencies. Local matters. Local elected officials, state elected officials, positions in organizations such as the World Bank, IFC, and then we have K through 12 education. So whatever your interests are, you can still serve the Hindu Samaj and the world at large. It all depends on doing your homework. Doctor or engineer, that's easy. That's an easy answer to a difficult question. But actually doing your due diligence and finding out where you would be best suited is what we need to be doing at this stage, because we can, because our parents, our ancestors did the hard work of bringing us to a place where we are sitting here today. We had the money and resources, the time to come here. That means we have the money, resources, and time to pursue these kinds of professions as well, to make sure that we're not gonna suffer if we take some time to do an internship program and get our foot in the door. So there's a lot more that I could say, but a few more things I wanted to mention is, what if you already have a career? You're like, Joe, I'm already an engineer, I'm already a doctor, I did my MBBS or MD degree, I'm not interested in going into a new career. That doesn't mean you can't serve the Hindu community and the world at large. I want to give you the example of Dr. Richa Sinha, who I just met. She is a Hindu representative to the Scottish government, and she's a dentist by profession. So a lot of us are volunteering in Hindu-focused organizations. We need to go out into the world and serve the world as well. And all of us are qualified to do that. So these unhelpful and baseless narratives about Hindus as perpetrators of violence against other communities continue to be peddled without consequences. This is just an example from last month. Patiently working in these spaces is the most effective way to put a stop to these harmful practices. Although the possibilities for Hindu contributions to civic and public life around the world are endless, our time today is finite. So let me end here. I have sources listed here for anybody that's interested. Thank you so much. I'll be here afterwards. I'm your career counselor. Let me serve you. Thank you.